so that every summer we meet for a trip.
Vacation has officially begun on Netflix.
To best enjoy your trip, we suggest the following itinerary.
I say we just wing it.
Wing it.
See where the wind takes us.
From best-selling author Emily Henry
Are you guys like a thing?
Oh no,
we're
we're
just
just friends. Platonic travel companions.
comes your next favorite rom-com.
Who wants to go skinny dipping? Alex does.
Vacation, Alex!
I love it when you get weird.
People We Meet on Vacation, now playing on Netflix. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
Due west of Philadelphia lies this semi-rural, historic cemetery that's very old, named Mount Moriah Cemetery. It's very cool looking, gothic as they come, being built in the mid-1800s. Today, it has over 150,000 burials. Though maybe, in fact, a few less, as we'll get into it. Now, the cemetery stopped accepting cold ones around 2011, so in the past 15 years, it's fallen into disrepair and disuse, vegetation overgrowth, gravestones falling down. Basically, a person with an interest in gothic stuff like yours truly, and I'm sure a lot of you too, would find it fascinating. One man certainly did, anyways. Now, there is a group that does try to look after the plots and gravestones at Mount Moriah Cemetery. After all, this is the final resting place of many beloved people who deserve to be respected. A non-profit organization, name of the Friends of Mount Moriah Cemetery, does its best to maintain graves, clear brush, keep the area neat and tidy. Though it is the largest cemetery in PA, so they got their work cut out for them, I'll tell you that for free. Good luck. But there are people there regularly, trying to, keep it sort of neat and tidy. And so it was that on November 7th, 2025, they were there, sweeping up the leaves as this was mid-autumn. And that day, a week after Halloween, the Yeadon Borough Police Department, they got a call from a member of the Friends of Mount Moriah Cemetery. The member was quite concerned with what they had found in the graveyard. November 7th, 2025, at approximately 11:30 in the AM, this Good Samaritan was doing as they do, cleaning the area, sweeping leaves, all that jazz. And at this approximate area of the graveyard, according to the police report, which contains the mausoleums, they had found what looked like a burglary. The access point had been sealed with cement and concrete blocks, but that didn't stop a very eager beaver from getting in. Though this is also exactly how a zombie movie would start. Now, all the entrances to the various mausoleums at Mount Moriah Cemetery, they'd been filled up with concrete and cement blocks over the years due to previous, vandalisms and burglaries and people just getting up to no good. But what they would find this day took it to a whole new level. The basement level. Police were called and ventured inside the structure and found that the marble flooring had been destroyed, revealing the crypts which lay 10 feet below. Beside was a rope tied to a tree branch, which had been used by the invader to rappel down to the crypt itself, which had been broken open. It belonged to Martha Hunter, who had passed away at 15 years of age in 1869. The entire remains from that crypt were missing. We got ourselves a grave robber. Now, at the scene, police did find a couple of items that this grave robber had left behind. That rope, a carabiner, a screwdriver, which had the name Brian etched into the handles multiple times. So police took all that in as evidence. They sent the screwdriver and the carabiner in to get, DNA tested and fingerprint tested. Then, 3 weeks later, on November 29th, 2025, at about 2 p.m, police were called back again to the Mount Moriah Cemetery. Another discovery done been made. Another mausoleum had been cracked open. The Jonathan Pritchard family tomb desecrated. There were 9 crypts inside. 5 had been damaged. One set of remains, those belonging to Mary Pritchard Stiegelman, gone completely. In the tomb, though, more evidence was found. See, whoever was doing this was not cleaning up their shit that they were leaving behind. They found a can of Monster in the tomb, because, hey, when you're robbing graves, you just need that extra oomph. This was processed for evidence, DNA testing, fingerprints, and also the date and batch code on that little can of Monster. That was tracked down. When and where was it sold? What monster is drinking the Monster? And in fact, that very same day, another mausoleum right behind the Pritchard family one, somebody tried to break into that one too. One of the windows had been covered with concrete and they found somebody had like chipped away at it. Now, they hadn't actually gotten into the mausoleum, but they had clearly attempted to before they gave up. I guess Monster can only give you so much energy. Now, detectives then started to become concerned because they were finding more and more mausoleums in this well-known but disused cemetery. And you can't really have anybody going around like yoink, yoink, skull, body, all of a bit of that. It's not exactly ideal. So what detectives did was they started to, search through police records. Was there any other records of people breaking into mausoleums, grave robbers in PA in general? And they found some. They found some up in Luzerne County, which is a couple of hours north. It's near Scranton, so it's a good bit away from Philly. There had been no arrests there. There had been a couple of ones in Philadelphia cemeteries themselves, but no arrests there either. But it was like a startling number of grave robbing was done in this very short period of time. Now, the number of burglarized mausoleums when the investigation went full force was pretty shocking. In total, they would discover that at least 26 vaults and mausoleums had been broken into or damaged. And that was just in Mount Moriah Cemetery itself, not counting Luzerne County or Philadelphia, all having seemingly been done in the same way, with a frigging crowbar. Graves dug up, mausoleums smashed into, and sometimes little treats left behind, like a can of Monster or a half-smoked Marlboro Menthol. And finally, it was just before Christmas 2025, after 6 weeks of discovering broken into mausoleums, that police got a tip using their Crime Stoppers website. Look into Jonathan Gerlach for the Luzerne County mausoleum robbery. I know someone who's friends with his family, and they mentioned that they recently discovered a partially decomposed corpse hanging in his basement, but were afraid to tell the police. They suspect he may be behind the Luzerne County mausoleum robbery, which happened around the same time in early November. The mausoleum was robbed between November 1st and 6th, and Jonathan was charged with shoplifting in East Earl Township on October 31st. While not a crime, you'll see on his Instagram that he follows accounts in taxidermy, skeleton collecting and sales, oddities, bones, etc. He also disappeared for a few days in November and mentioned that he had been in Chicago selling a human skull. That tip came in from this Jonathan Gerlach's brother's friend. Jonathan's brother had been to his house and seen just like a shitload of bones, corpses, decomposing bodies, and was like, interesting. Told his friend told the police. And if you go look at what they recommended you do, go look at this guy's Instagram, you'll see some weird shit. The police saw some weird shit. Let's look at it. Let's look at his Instagram. Jonathan Gerlach's Instagram, suspect number 1, and his Instagram is gas. Dead shit daddy. It's filled with, as you can see, skulls, all the bits and bobs, and captions like, if you know, you know, wink wink. So yeah, that's, I take it that's him admitting he's grave robbing these bits and bobs, and it's like, hey, if you know, you know, the old grave robber's mantra. And hey, listen, any of these look delectable to you? DM, baby. Some are very dark and extremely disturbing. So, yeah, that'll do, I suppose. Mystery solved. Police also found posts of him selling items on Facebook, and tracking his purchases, he had bought items that matched the ones used in the robberies. The police had a bone to pick with him, so they began tracking his car, tracking his cell phone, and seeing where he was going, and, I mean, he spent a lot of time in cemeteries, wandering around them. What's he doing there? And I don't think he was going there for a bit of peace and quiet among the eternally sleeping. He was looking at it like it was Walmart. It was January 6th, 2026, that while police were surveilling Mount Moriah Cemetery, they saw Jonathan Gerlach's car pull in. It pulled in and he just left it outside. He snuck in to the cemetery. Very nonchalantly, like clearly something he was used to. Another day on the rig for Johnny G. Now, he's not very subtle, as you can see on his Instagram, because when police were surveilling him, they saw him park his car outside the cemetery, sneak into the cemetery. They could clearly see, in the back seat of his car, skulls and bones. They then waited for him to leave the cemetery, which he did, carrying a crowbar and a burlap sack. They arrested him there and then, and having a little peek inside that burlap sack, what did they see? Inside were the mummified remains of 2 small children, several skulls, and it's like a shitload of bones.
Breaking right now at 4 on CBS News Philadelphia, Delaware County officials say they have nabbed a grave robber. Officials say a man stole bones, jewelry, and other things from an area cemetery.
Officials say that the suspect was stealing human remains out of a historic cemetery. Some of the remains were 200 years old. Others belonged to newborn babies. D.A. Rouse describes the sickening nature of what they found.
Very simply, detectives walked into a horror movie come to life the other night, guys. This is an unbelievable scene that no one involved, from myself to the detectives to the medical examiners that are now trying to piece together what they are looking at, quite literally. None of them have ever seen anything like this before.
Police searched his home and found a lot of skulls, a torso, a lot of gross and horrifying items. Decomposing bodies, posed and still rotting. You know, the neighbors would say they never met Jonathan, but they did meet the flies that were quickly congregating in the area. Yeah, no surprise there. They discovered more than 100 full or partial sets of remains in not only his house, but also a storage unit. He needed more space for all the remains he was stealing. He couldn't fit it in his house.
Ugh, what a fucking creep.
Yeah, old.
It's like my grandmother's dentures.
It is. It's fucking gross. Look at the one hanging. Ugh.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this was a couple.
Look at these ones. All the ones behind you. God damn.
Oh, that one's still alive.
That's not alive. Hold on, I want to get the hand.
Wow, look at this.
That's very...
Oh, sorry. Oh my God.
What the fuck? Is that a pacemaker?
It appears that he had began doing this in Mount Moriah at least in early November, true to early January. Though for all we know, he could have been doing this there for much longer, and was most certainly doing it elsewhere. Jonathan allegedly admitted to stealing around 30 sets of remains from Mount Moriah, though I'm sure he went a lot further than that. He actually took detectives on a tour of his robberies. He was like, sure, I'll show you around, showing them exactly how he did it, taking them to tombs and mausoleums he had desecrated they didn't even know he had. Master grave robber over here in like the least subtle way. Now, it's also unknown how many he sold, if he actually managed to sell any. Police haven't confirmed that he made sales, but I imagine they were being snapped up with the amount of bodies he had. He was clearly making some money off it, not just doing it for shits and giggles. Though also maybe doing it for shits and giggles.
They had been collecting evidence against him for a while now. They were able to get physical DNA evidence from the scene of where the graves were robbed. They also were able to collect information from his social media where he's being tagged in people speaking about buying and selling these human remains from him.
Neighbors at Gerlach's Ephrata home started to get suspicious when they started noticing flies around the window.
It was more than 5, it was at least 20, 30 on each window. I figured it was a garage that they were getting in through somewhere and they couldn't get out, and now finding out that there was all those remains in there, it makes sense.
Now, Jonathan Gerlach is an interesting fella, indeed. 34-year-old Jonathan, he lived in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, which is like this quiet little neighborhood. It's believed he lived there with his girlfriend, who was a photographer. I mean, the pictures on his Instagram, they are very well taken, so they got style, I'll give them that. Now, Ephrata, it's about an hour 30 from Mount Moriah, so he was making that hike pretty regularly. Jonathan had no real criminal history. There was the retail theft in East Earl Township when he stole about $160 worth of items on Halloween 2025. In September 2025, he was arrested for driving an unregistered vehicle. Few other charges, nothing major. In June 2023, he had a driving violation. And despite everything we've gone through, friends of his would say he's just this, everyday, regular, normal guy. He is, one friend would say he is a, quote, A good dude. Well, why didn't you say so?
He met Jonathan Gerlach around 2010 while playing at shows with his band called My Hearts of Fear. Poole says Gerlach also joined a band called Road to Milestone as a lyricist and vocalist, and both of their bands would often play at shows together until around 2018.
John was like one of my closer friends that I would hang out with, have brewskis with, and chop it up with outside of the shows. It would always just be him and I talking about, our beliefs, and he's a very empathetic guy. Like, he was always a good dude.
His friends found it unbelievable when they heard about all of this coming out. They were like, sure, old Johnny, the guy obsessed with death and skulls and all that stuff. Him? Grave robber? No. One friend said that, my reaction is that it seems like psychosis of some sort. I just wonder what, I guess, triggered him. So on his Instagram, he posted that he was completing his certification in forensic and osteological analysis, which is bone analysis. But he wasn't always so obsessed with skeletons and all that. Okay, well, actually, maybe he was, because before all this, in a previous life years ago, he had been a heavy metal musician. This is like in his 20s.
So, this new Blind Bird album called Vulture, started writing it last September in 2015. I went through a pretty rough breakup that it was abrupt, and it left me to really question a lot of things about myself, my faith walk, everything I kind of assumed about who I was as a man and as an individual. And I cooped myself up in my apartment for probably a good 7 months just writing this album and getting it all out of my system.
He'd worked on projects with bands like The Road to Milestone and Blind Bird. Yeah, I never heard of them either.
What if I told you that your beauty seeps from beneath the cracks? But who can blame us when we're forced to feed inside expectations? We all just want to be loved, but it's never enough. We take what we can.
That explains why we never heard of them. All right. He did little interviews. He seemed to be like sort of a semi-well-known figure in the heavy metal you've seen, at least in PA. And Death and Skulls, they're always sort of part of the, metal aesthetic. Though, old Johnny Boy, he certainly went a little bit deeper than that. I mean, he must have become fascinated with it. This what I could not stop thinking about through this entire story was that, like, that 90s viral video, must be like one of the first viral videos, grave robbing for morons. I'm sure Johnny Boy watched the shit out of that.
Before you even move this part, all right, you find the hands, all right, you take out the fingers, because those are small. They're very small. They're in parts, right? If you rip off this part, you will leave the rest, and this part, and this part, and this part, all right? So if you want this part, right, you have to take that out first, right? Because it will break off like nothing. Make sure there's no witnesses when you leave. Always bring it back. If you leave witnesses, sometimes you might like doing these things and everything. After a while, somebody might see them and say, that was him, that was him, that was him. Never let anybody point you out, right? Because if you get pointed out, it's very easy, all right? So let's say you robbed around 5 graves, all right? All right, for the first one, you might get caught, all right? But if there's witnesses for the rest of them, you will get caught too. Why? Because they're gonna blame you for it, right? Because they caught you for this one, that means you most likely did the rest of them, and the judge will say it was you. Never leave witnesses. If you have to, knock them out so that way they think it's a dream. It's best not to kill, but if it's necessary, do it.
Still to this day, nobody actually knows who made grave robbing for morons. It's never been confirmed even if it's real. Though I'll hazard a guess that it is. And many have theories and speculated about who's behind it. Still to this day, it remains an internet mystery.
Just look for dates that are over 60 years old. If you find something over 60 years old, this is what you will get. Or maybe even a bit better. Now, if you find something over 60 years old, you are in good luck. You could get around 250 for one of these. If you get a leg bone and it's carved into a necklace or something, you might get around 650 for it. It's really worth it because a lot of people won't do this. And, and this is worth a lot of money, because it's real.
Now, there have been rumors that perhaps, maybe, old Johnny was linked to one Cedric Lodge. Cedric, you might remember, was caught selling body parts on the internet. He was a morgue manager at Harvard Medical School, and from 2018 to 2023, when he was caught, he was selling and delivering, well, what you want from a person. We got the brains, we got the skin, we got it all those bits and bobs. All the bits and bobs that, make up a human being. One of the buyers from Cedric Lodge was a guy named Jeremy Pauley, who lived in Pennsylvania. Honesdale, which is about 2.5 hours from Ephrata, where Jonathan lived. Jeremy ran a store selling oddities, like bones and shit. It seems very likely that Jonathan, who loved oddities, probably knew maybe a little bit about Jeremy Pauley, and certainly knew the story of selling body parts, because that's exactly what he was doing.
I've said this many times about him since I've been asked about him. Either he's mentally ill or he has the biggest balls I've ever seen, because to do what he was doing at the volume he was doing it, I can't fathom, what would possess someone to do that. And obviously he was selling the stuff, I don't know why he was collecting stuff in such volume. It's really weird to me, because I know he had posted about forming an LLC on forensic analysis and things like that. So maybe the best case scenario, in my opinion, is in some warped way. Maybe that's what he was trying to do, was to build some kind of database to learn, but that's giving him a lot of credit.
Now, there hasn't been any confirmation from the authorities that Jonathan, Jeremy, and Cedric knew each other or were in contact with each other, but it's extremely likely that they were all part of this underground body part selling network. And I mean, the fact that Jonathan stole so many body parts, he needed a storage unit to keep them all. He was clearly doing it with the idea that he could sell all of these. He probably had buyers lined up licking their chops. And that's just the actual body parts themselves he could sell on the black market, not to mention the often expensive jewelry folk could be buried with. Gold, diamonds, brooches with gemstones. Those buckaroos back in the day, they done dress good. Yoink. The only rumors about the selling he did was from that tip when they said he went to sell a skull in Chicago. Who knows how many more little dealings he had and how much more cha-ching he got. Jonathan Gerlach is facing over 500 charges. Most namely abuse of a corpse and also burglary, theft, trespassing, and desecration. He's being held on $1 million bail. Police now have the very difficult task of notifying families related to the plots that were dug up by old Johnny Boy in Mount Moriah, but also other cemeteries in the area. It's going to be a very difficult task. A, because it's not exactly something anybody wants to hear, but some of these scripts are over 150 years old. So you sort of have to say, oh yeah, you remember your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma? You can buy her skull on Facebook.